Hello and welcome to Binge of the Week. I'm Sonia, aka Binge of the Week. This week's episode, The Pit of Despair, Season 2. And how could we begin with anything else but what I like to call Helmet Gate? Robbie not wearing a helmet in the first scene of this, basically because I'm chronically online, and that usually just means chronically on threads. I feel like there was a lot of reaction, maybe because of my algorithm, to Robbie not wearing a helmet and people thinking it was a mistake and it's silly for an ER doctor to not wear a helmet. And it made a lot of people question what we like to call media literacy. It's not that I want to judge people for having that take. I just think maybe we need to recalibrate a little bit how audiences ask questions when things happen on screens. And that is a little bit of media literacy. It's how do you ask a question when something is incongruous to what you think you should be seeing? So instead of assuming a mistake is being made by the production, which on a production like this is very unlikely. Now, I'm sure there are mistakes in the production. Everything happens. It is a million moving parts. There are no productions with zero mistakes. But not a mistake like that. Mistakes like that in productions like this do not exist. Everything that is happening on screen is very much on purpose. Everything everyone wears is on purpose. Makeup is very detailed. The show is insanely detailed. So if you're not one of those people who questioned it and understood what the writers were trying to say to you, and I guess this is my reminder to say spoiler alert at the top of every episode, I'm going to talk about the whole season. Robbie's suicidal. We are supposed to get that from the first scene, from the lack of helmet. And I will mention something I talked about last week, which is this show is not a mystery. It plays everything pretty straight down the line. Of course, there's not knowing what a diagnosis is for a patient and whether patients are going to live and die, but it's not lost. It's not trying to have a big twist with Robbie at the end. It's not trying to foreshadow. I mean, I guess it could be trying to foreshadow a motorcycle accident, but I think it's not really that kind of show. It's telling you everything pretty straightforward. And I think what I called it last week was subtle and unsubtle. It's a very subtle show because the things about the show live in the nuances of emotional reality of the characters. Those are very layered and written in a nuanced way. So that's subtle, but it is unsubtle in the sense of it's not hiding its intent. We know from the opening scene without a word being spoken that Robbie's not being careful and is not taking care of himself. And while you might not get suicidal from that, it's been a while since we saw him last. He wasn't doing well last time, and he's not doing any better now. So you could pretty easily from scene one understand where he's at. And if you don't, the whole day unfolds to basically confirm that that's where he's at emotionally. And not only is he not wearing a helmet, he's carrying one on his back. So he's not without helmet. He's choosing to not wear one. So again, I think, my message to anyone who reacted to this as a mistake would be, hey, what are they trying to tell me? Because this feels weird as a choice, which means it must be very intentional. Speaking of intent, this season is very interesting to me tonally because it's a pretty big shift from season one, which felt very much like a crescendo towards an adrenaline-fueled incident for the last few episodes, where this one never really went there. It feels much more internal to the characters, and the things that are happening are smaller but incessant and just breaking everyone little by little, because there's no, oh, this is a hectic day that then turns into a tragedy, which is something that is fueled by adrenaline and getting through it because it's crazy. While this one is just a very bad day with a very bad office logistics and tech breakdown, and also stressful cases and different stressors. I think probably least believably that a doctor who's taking over an entire ED would overlap with the person that they're relieving for one day. We just get to zoom in on an incredibly bad day where the confluence of events is that everything went wrong for Robbie. So we still stay on that track, but in a very different way from season 1. And I think it's still very enthralling and brings you in, but it's just this creeping stress that is piling up on everyone, and people are just breaking under their own emotional stress in this day that is hard for them, but it's not like last season in a lot of ways. And this whole function of real time plus the patients, which are what drive the plot points of the doctor's emotional arcs, which all function together to tell the story of healthcare. And it's such a layered game of getting audience buy-in all the time. So you're getting buy-in on different levels, where sometimes you're getting it on the level of these standout patients. For me, I was so enamored with the Howard story, the overweight patient who needed to go to Presby for a scan. Digby, the unhoused man that was with Dana and Emma. And Louis, our returning patient who sadly and tragically dies from his addiction. I think those 3 are my standout characters for the patients in this season. And I just love how good these writers are at getting my emotional buy-in on these extremely sweet patients that again function to tell the doctor's emotional arcs, but also show you how the doctors handle things. The way that McKay, Whitaker, Robbie, and Abbott dealt with Howard was so endearing to how caring they are for their patients and how they didn't shame him for his weight and treated him with so much respect. I think that just gets you so much emotional buy-in to the doctors and their story. So how they interact with their patients while that's driving the plot of the episode and the day just works so beautifully. These writers are very, very skilled at telling this layered story. And we have all this new staff because I think it's going to be pretty common in this show that there's turnover. It's a teaching hospital. They're supposed to be. So we've lost a couple people, but we've gained Emma, the nurse, Ogilvy, and Al-Hashimi. We also got Tumarian, but I'm going to cover her in the night shift conversation. We've got these character arcs, and they're so good at these character arc introductions, but my brain is so broken from basically professionally watching television and being in production. I think when Al-Hashimi was introduced and they're writing her to make you hate her. You know, she's introduced as like the AI antagonist, getting in Robbie's way, trying to change things before she understands what's really going on in this place. I think it was wonderfully written, but my brain right away goes to, oh, they're going to write her this harsh this soon because they want me to dislike her so that they can have her earn my way to liking her by the end of the season. So as soon as I saw her written that way, I figured that's where we were going. I don't know if other people do this when they're watching. I don't think it's the best way to watch TV. It's just that that's what my brain does. I wish I could totally suspend my thoughts and just go along for the ride. It's also a different ride because I only binge watch it. Like, I definitely saw a ton of spoilers while I was online. and the season was playing out, but I wasn't watching it yet. So I was actually interacting with posts about the pit before I even saw it because I would see clips. And the way people wrote about her cracked me up because, yeah, I hated her too at the start. You're kind of supposed to. She's coming in and making all sorts of judgments. And like I said last week, I do think you're supposed to be on Robbie's side. I hope people are on Robbie's side. I'm 100% on Robbie's side. But yeah, that switch is going to come. Like they're going to write her that way so heavy-handed in the beginning because it's going to create this dynamic of her earning her way in with everyone. And that's not, like, again, it's not a mystery. We're not trying to trick the audience. It's just that that's how you write a good character arc for a new character that's just been installed into your show. Which, speaking of character arcs, we're going to do a lot of speaking ofs today, I feel. Speaking of character arcs, Langdon is back. I really am trying to like Langdon. I have a hard time with it because while I empathize with this character's arc and his addiction, I find him very grating on his lack of accountability. And as I mentioned last time, his gaslighting and just atrocious behavior towards Santos was so bad. I think in this season, clearly the way that they always try to earn your love of him is through Mel. And obviously, this time Becca as well, when she came in as a patient. He's not evil. I don't think Langdon is a bad guy, although, let's be honest, I put him on the evil square of my character alignment chart last week. I did move him this week, more later, but he still grates me because it's not full accountability. He still says things like it didn't affect my work, which is him lying to himself. I don't think this is bad writing, and I don't think he's a bad person. Again, the skill of writing this show is that everyone is this nuanced, almost real person that is not good or bad. It's just that their way of handling things sometimes goes in that direction one way or the other. But yeah, I'm still totally Team Santos, and she gives it to him pretty good when he tries to apologize to her. I do think he is honest, at least with Elishimi, where he says, I was an asshole to her on her first day. And that's good, but Santos to me is right. He hasn't taken full responsibility because he isn't ready to say it affected his work, but also because she's correct that he got away with a lot. And he's still complaining about what happened to him as if he didn't cause it and isn't really clocking that he was able to skirt the fact that he stole drugs, which would have landed him in prison instead of still getting to be a doctor. So I feel like he's still got a ways to go with me and Santos, and I'm going to side with my girl. And now, speaking of her, for me, she's got some of the most interesting stuff going on this season because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm slightly biased in this observation because I like her, but I feel like she has a lot of interaction with a lot of characters. She's got a lot of touch points with everyone. And while everyone interacts, I feel like she gets the most touch points because she's interacting with Whitaker and Javati, Mel, Garcia, Robbie. I could go on. I just think she gets a lot of different relationships. She touches base with a lot of the characters more than others, in my view. So I think that makes her kind of dynamic because she's got a different relationship with each person. Like she still makes her jokes, but she's so much softer with a Mel, where one of my favorite pairings is actually Robbie and Santos talking to each other, I could have 100% more scenes of these two interacting because they are, to me, on the same wavelength. They understand the politics and social things about the hospital way more than the other characters. I would put Abbott on the same list. I think all three of them have this dark humor and understand the political, social aspects of working there better than all the others and are able to joke around with each other. She's very able to easily joke with Robbie or say things that other people would not say to him. And he's able to see her and not get frustrated at her grumpy comments because he's the same way. So I think there's a lot of respect between those two characters that I enjoy, even if it's just them passing each other in the hallway and making a quick comment. Which, speaking of Robbie this season, my goodness. Yeah, again, it's an ensemble cast, but it is his emergency department. He is the center of it. And it seems like some people may have had a hard time with Robbie this season. I think it's fair. I just think I like him the same as I liked him last season because this is the same character brought much closer to the edge, much closer to the brink of what he can take and what is someone like him when they're at their breaking point. Not super pleasant. He is a doctor. What I love about this season is that we really see it come to a head, what I said about they all have ways of functioning through life, and sometimes that plays out in a positive way and sometimes a negative way. And with Robbie, he's this super high functioning doctor. He can fix people. And what he says to Mohan about you have to think of these walls as a force field, that's just how he functions. He doesn't have anything outside of the ED. And I think he's great when he can fix people, but when he's not able to successfully do that, it breaks him. Like him explaining to Abbott that a little part of him dies every time he loses someone in the hospital. I think it's because he can only function as a doctor who fixes people. And he has no relationships outside of there. And at this point, all he has is when he's successfully saving people. And when he fails at that, he can't handle it anymore because there is no Robbie outside of being a doctor. So he hasn't learned to be a full person and a full emotional being that can have other relationships. And that's why when he's not able to be the fixer, it destroys him. He's not learned to be a fully functioning person like a Whitaker, which Whitaker to me is the future chief of the ED. There were just scenes of Robbie watching him take on his lessons that he's teaching other people already in his first year. He's just become a doctor today, officially with his badge. And he's just going to win the most well-adjusted person in the ED award from me. He's got a full life outside, a full capability of handling his emotions, and he's also a very good doctor. Even Mel, I have to mention my girl Mel, of course. She's fantastic and I love her, and she's my favorite always, but she's even in this episode having to learn that she needs to make a life outside of Becca and the hospital. Like, she doesn't have her own life. So it's interesting to watch Robbie go through this and try to get out of there, I guess with the intention of never coming back maybe, because it really ends with him and Abbott and him and Langdon. And the Langdon confrontation is really interesting to me because Langdon is correct. Robbie does need help and he is in denial and he needs to be honest with himself. that message is very funny for me coming from Langdon, who I think I fault for not being honest with himself. I think where they differ for me is, first of all, I just liked Robbie right away, so I'm gonna be honest about the fact that I'm biased. But yes, Robbie does have a lot of moments of lashing out, obviously, in this season, especially with McKay, Dana, Javati, and Mohan. And I think what I appreciate about his character is not that he's not ever terrible. He's terrible in those moments, but they are totally allowed in scenes following that to call him out on that. He gets told to his face that he's not being okay, and he accepts it because he knows it's true. And I think Langdon can sometimes rebut that in a way that frustrates me because it's like, no, someone's telling you you're out of pocket and you're not really getting it. I think Robbie gets it more than Langdon. And also Robbie tries to go back and fix the content of what he got wrong with that person in that interaction. And what I mean by that is he's not perfect. He doesn't even apologize, but he does go to Mohan and tries to really fix what happened in that conversation that he felt didn't go right because he didn't handle it correctly, and tries to fix the content of what was happening between the two of them. So like, here's what I really wanted you to understand. Here's what I would like you to take away from what I said by rehashing that conversation. Where I don't think Langdon really has a way to fix. He just goes and says, I'm sorry I hurt you. And I'm hurting too. It's not as helpful as, to me, maybe. And again, I will totally cop to being biased on this. I just think Robbie, I'm still on side with him because it feels to me like he's really trying to address what he got wrong in that conversation. Like with the Javati, he goes back and says, you know what? I like your social media stuff. I still want you to have boundaries to what you're doing in the hospital. So he's not 100% taking the, hey, my bad route, but he wants her to understand that he sees her and sees her potential. Even Mohan, like, I see you and you can do X thing. And that to me, in a way, is trying to fix what he thinks went wrong with the content of what happened with that person. Of, I said it wrong, I reacted wrong, but I don't want you to walk away with the wrong message about what I really think of you. So, not to be a Robbie apologist, but I kind of am a Robbie apologist. I know a couple of people I've seen throw around that he's a misogynist, but I've also seen other people call him like one of the guys that's, on the good list for women. So it's really interesting to me how people are seeing him differently. I think that the writers just happen to be writing that there's a lot of strong female characters in this show. And if anything, I think Robbie's biggest conflict is with a man because it's with Langdon. And I don't think that he's necessarily more harsh on the women. I just think the women are being written with the scenes of the things that are going wrong that end up rubbing up against Robbie. I could be wrong. Maybe he is harsher on women than he needs to be. But I think when Robbie's being harsh on someone, I think it comes from a level of, and this is not excusing it, it's not okay to be like this with people, but it comes from a level of expectation because he respects them so much that he wants them to do better. And it's like Langdon accuses him of, if you can't live up to your standards, how can we? It's a totally fair accusation. That is what Robbie is like. I've had a boss who kind of expected me to be perfect because he expected himself to be perfect. And I told him to his face, I was like, your expectation of what you're supposed to be accomplishing is not fair. You can't be perfect. And my boss took that very well. So maybe that's why. Maybe I understand people like this better because I am a perfectionist. Robbie, he needs help. Is he going to get help? I don't know. We don't know. We finished the season kind of not knowing. Obviously, it's kind of like last time too. You kind of hope that he's going to be better next time. But everyone is trying to tell him he needs help. is that really offering help? Does he have anyone to help him? I will say, I said that he has no one in his life outside of the ED. He does have Duke. That's very nice. I loved seeing this character masterfully played. Beautifully written scenes with him and Robbie really gets him on a level like Abbott gets him, where they both try to offer this advice where they're like, I see you, I'm trying to tell you what you need to hear, but Robbie's not the type to hear it or want to hear it. So I'm very taken with this character. I thought it was so beautifully done and really showed a lot of Robbie's caring for people even outside of the hospital, but again, in doctor mode. He's diagnosed this guy before he even comes in. He knows there's something wrong. And Abbott, speaking of Abbott, I'm going to actually touch on night shift first because Abbott is trying to help Robbie. Everyone is. But first we have to talk night shift because the entrance of the night shift in this episode between Shen and Abbott coming in, which we love them. Ellis is here, but also we get the introduction of Henderson and Tumarian, who I immediately love. This writer's room is so good. They have perfected these side characters. They're each quirky in their own way. Believably, they're not caricaturish, but they're still comic relief. They're funny and quirky, but not too far. And I know there's a lot of spinoff talk, or maybe that's just, again, my algorithm talking to me, but I've seen enough spinoff talk to the point where Noah commented on it, and he said, trust me, you don't want a spinoff. You don't want night shift. And people are saying, yeah, we do. It's fascinating to me because when they came into this episode, when they got introduced for the changeover, I really did enjoy the characters so much, and I had that feeling of, I want to stay. And it was good because there were still a couple episodes, because this is how the shift works. It's always a disastrous shift that goes over the 12, 13 hours they're supposed to work. And I did have this feeling like I want to stay here with these people. I like them so much. I think there are two reasons I do agree with Noah about why you don't want to spin off. One is just logistically on a production level of production resources where you'd have to get the producers from this show to be working on that show as well. And I think you'd need to use the same set. And it takes many months to produce this show. I can't imagine what it would take to do both and do them both at the same level. I was going to say I won't name names. I will name names. This is like the Taylor Sheridan thing. It's like once you start making 10 shows, it's just not as good. I definitely understand from a logistical standpoint of being a producer, but also from a story standpoint. He hasn't said this, but my guess as a creator would be that these characters are great side characters. They work incredibly well. I mean, they are one of my favorite things in the show, and I think a lot of people's favorite things in the show, but they work that well because they are purely side characters. Once you start writing the stories about them, that shifts dramatically. So if you did a show, what the audience wants is more night shift. Like, I like night shift right now. I want more of this. It wouldn't be more of this. It would be something else. Now, I think I would love it and happily watch it. But I do think maybe there's a question there to be asked of, do people really grasp that if we made a show about these characters, they would no longer be as fun? Shen wouldn't just be drinking iced coffee and making quips. There would have to be a level so much deeper where you're getting into territory of they have problems and they're flawed and they can maybe piss you off sometimes. Would we like Abbott as much if he were more at the center of things like Robbie, where like he has to do things wrong sometimes or else he's just too perfect? Because right now, Abbott gets to function as this fixer. He gets to come in and he fixes everybody's problems. No matter what you got going on, I'll pay for it. I'll get this patient to Presby. I've got this hard intubation. I will talk to Robbie and get him to not off himself. He comes in with the answers every time, and he's emotionally well adjusted to the level of, Robbie's having a crisis, and that's totally fair. Can you imagine Abbott's story? He's lost a leg, he's lost a wife, and he's still kind of pretty much rolling with it, and has his emotional well-being well under check, much more than a Robbie. He has learned to be the full person, but I feel like if you wrote a show around this character, you'd have to throw a wrench in that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could write that he's always the hero with all the answers all the time, and that would be fun to watch. But I don't think that's what they would do. So I wonder if there's the skepticism of, yeah, but if you got a spinoff, these characters wouldn't be the ones that you're watching when you see them on the day shift changeover. You'd have to watch 15 hours of them, and that would make it a very different dynamic. So I do wonder if that's the calculation. That's me hazarding a guess at why they're adamantly saying you're not getting night shift. Listen, as I just stated, I would happily watch it. I don't care if you have to tack on 50 flaws to each of these characters. The show's so fantastic, but I do bet that it was also just a logistical nightmare to think of running 2 of these shows in 1 year. I don't think that they would be able to do the work they do unless they could double their staff and find other producers, which I doubt that that's what they want. I will leave this saying that I did play a bit more with my alignment chart that I made last week. I had posted last week that I didn't know what lawful evil would look like, and everyone said the healthcare system or Gloria for season 1. Totally true. I was only talking about the doctors at the time, so I didn't think of it that way. I do think this season you get Monica. She was lawful evil. We hate her. And I moved Garcia over to lawful evil because I've started to dislike her. I still find her funny when she's in the trauma room and making jokes or being quippy with people. But the way she treats Santos is something that I kind of hate, and I'm just not into it. And I moved Langdon over from chaotic evil to neutral evil. Again, it's not that he's actually evil, but if you understand how alignment charts work, I do think that's fair. And I put Ogilvy in chaotic evil because he's crazy. Also because Collins left, Al-Hashimi took her place in lawful neutral. And there was a lot more. I think I would place all night shift on the chaotic side, even though Henderson didn't seem chaotic. And maybe neither did Tumarian, but I think just by the simple fact that you work the night shift, you're on the chaotic side, and that's where I'm placing you. Anyway, I did also, because I didn't want to rank the characters, simply because there's just too many of them. At this point, I have 19 characters on my alignment chart, and that's just way too many people to start ranking. Although, I mean, Garcia has fallen so much for me. She's like below Langdon at this point. Can you believe it? Someone has gone lower in my estimations than Langdon. But I did have this thought of who would I want if I could choose 5 of the doctors? Who would I want on my medical team, and who would I want at my dinner party? And that's where I landed instead of ranking them. So on my medical team, I put Abbott, Mel, Henderson, Robbie, and Whitaker. And for my dinner party, I put Abbott, Mel, Santos, Whitaker, and Robbie. I'm on the fence about Robbie. I don't actually think he'd be fun at dinner, but I do just like him as a person, as a fictional person. So I really kind of was on the fence about that, but I think he could kind of be fun. If not that, then maybe Ellis or Shen would be better. But as long as you have Mel and Abbott and Santos and Whitaker, like, I'm pretty happy with that dinner party. Whitaker's a sweetheart. Santos is funny. Mel is the sweetest and the funniest, and Abbott's just awesome. The medical team was really easy because why wouldn't you want Robbie and Abbott? They're the best doctors. And Mel's incredible and understanding. Henderson, he was on screen for what, like 5 minutes? I'm totally sold on this character. Night shift people, again, are the best. And Whitaker, because he's a good person and a good doctor. So that wraps up The Pitt. I can't believe it. I am heading into doing Ready or Not for the next podcast. And I say that because I put up a vote. I really wanted to stick with like either a Noah project or Sean Hattasey project. And I put up a poll as to whether I should do the 3 librarian movies or Ready or Not next, which would mean not either or completely, just next. People really did vote a lot more for Ready or Not so far. So I think I'm going to do those 2 movies. I would actually really enjoy talking about like my feelings about horror. And I'm excited to do that. But I think after that, I might head into watching The Librarians. I remember loving those. I haven't seen them in a long time. And I love a rewatch, obviously. And I think I need something maybe lighthearted. I do think Ready or Not is funny, but it's still horror. I do think maybe it's time for like some levity after Animal Kingdom and The Pit. John Wells has emotionally destroyed me. I keep making this joke on Threads, but I might as well make it here. I want compensation from John Wells for how much he's hurt my feelings. This is just mean, and I am tired of crying over his characters and feeling emotionally distraught over his characters. Kudos to him for all his emotional damage that he's doing to all of us. And with that, stay cool. I'll see you next time.